What is the craziest excuse someone has given you that ended up being true? Hey guys, welcome back to the internet. We got some pretty wacky stories for today. A student emailed me and said that he missed a midterm because his car blew up. He sent a picture of him with the burnt car and police in the background, and he looked just so defeated. The email went something like this. Dear Professor, I'm sorry for missing the midterm, and this is going to sound like an excuse, see attached photos, but my car blew up. I'd really love a chance to rewrite the midterm. If not, well, sorry again. I had bigger fish to fry. I let him rewrite the midterm. Sounds like it was cars that he was frying, not fish. So my goat ate my homework. She didn't believe me until I took in the textbook with a solid bite mark taken out of it that I couldn't have possibly faked. Yeah man, goats will eat anything. You gotta keep valuable things away from them. A guy we worked with didn't turn up one day. We tried calling him and no answer. After a few days, me and a coworker went to his house. No answer at the door. His car wasn't in his driveway. After a couple of weeks, we figured he has taken off somewhere, and the boss put through his termination papers for not showing up. About a month after that, the guy rocks up on a Monday morning in uniform ready to work. Turns out he was in a car accident and was in a coma for weeks. He had no immediate family and no way to let us know. He ended up getting his job back. I wonder if he even knew that he was out of it the whole time, or if he just showed up and was like, alright, we're back to work from yesterday. So my friend came to class in high school with a ripped uniform shirt and told us the Lions got it. As it turns out, his mom was a vet for a zoo and had 2 cubs in her backyard. They saw his shirt flapping on the line and did what cats do, shredded it. I'm glad my cat is not a shredder. So a guy never showed up to work, and we couldn't get a hold of him on the phone. Turns out he had been trapped inside of a bank during a robbery that became a hostage situation. Nobody hurt, thankfully. This is one of those times where you're just stuck in the bank and you're just like, hey, at least I get to get out of work for this. My neighbor's house blew up and the cops won't let anyone leave. It was an active meth lab and he couldn't smell squat, apparently. Man, I feel like I'm learning lots of good excuses to use from this video. So I was playing an online game and had a party member say, F, gotta go, quake. Fortunately, they were unhurt, because it was the horrendous Christchurch earthquake that, if I remember correctly, killed dozens. Oh man, I had a similar situation to this a couple of years ago. So I was playing Overwatch online with a few friends once, and in the middle of it, one of them just says, wow, this is probably the heaviest storm I've ever seen here. And then 2 seconds later, he leaves the game and goes offline. I'm like, what just happened? And he lived about 5 miles north of me, and then about 3 or 4 minutes later, I just notice it get really dark outside, and then golf ball sized hail just starts pounding down and shaking the house. And I was like, well, I think I know why he just went offline. But it's always funny when your questions get answered by unlikely sources. So I dated a guy for a few months in college. Towards the beginning of the relationship, we planned to go out and he didn't show up. No phone call, no answered texts, nothing. So I was pissed. I began to accept that I had been stood up and would never hear from him again. A couple days later, I get a text. I'm so sorry, I just came out of a coma. Can I come over tomorrow? I thought it was BS, but I wanted to humor it. He shows up to my house with crutches and his discharge papers. He was definitely in a coma. He was in an awful accident on the way to my house that left his car totaled and broken bones and in a coma for a couple days. To this day, when friends tell me that their date ghosted them, I think, maybe he's in a coma? Man, it's gotta suck to actually go in a coma when somebody's expecting you somewhere, because it's been used as such a made up excuse. It's basically the my dog ate my homework of the adult world. And it's also a little bit difficult to explain yourself. So asking someone I knew to go to the bar and hearing, I can't, I got stabbed, turns out to be true. He sent me the video footage from the bar he was stabbed at, over a game of pool arguing over the rules. The guy waited in the bushes until the bar closed and stabbed him in the back. Cops did get the guy, and the victim was okay after the hospital. I mean, they say video games make people violent, but look at how violent this guy got just from playing pool. So an employee was late to work because she had to scrub down her car after her friend gave birth in it. They were on the way to the hospital and didn't get there fast enough. Yeah, that's a stain that you don't want to let sit too long. So my ex-boyfriend broke up with me because his cousin was on death row after shooting 2 police officers himself. He needed to take time to be with family. I thought there was no way this was true, but this might be the family that you might not want to get too invested in, just saying. So the elevator at my university's library got stuck. The security guard said it would take 3 hours to get us out. The girl beside me starts panicking. She's supposed to write a final exam in a few minutes. So the security guards called the professor to tell them that their student won't be at the final because she got stuck in the elevator. This is kind of like getting a doctor's note. You get the elevator man's note. So a coworker of mine said he couldn't come into work because the police wouldn't let him. Everyone at work called BS, and then he sent a picture from his window of a SWAT sniper using his car to monitor another building in his complex. Apparently there was a hostage situation. Everyone ended up being safe. I always think it's funny when people find themselves in situations like this, and their biggest concern isn't something like, man, I hope everyone turns out to be safe here. It's more just like, man, I sure hope my job will believe this. So I was late to work once because a peacock was in the middle of the road. The boss didn't believe me until the next day when the peacock blocked the road when he was coming in. Maybe somebody should go get the peacock out of the road. So I hired an employee via phone interview, and she didn't show up the first day at work. I called her up, and she said she did come to work and received orientation. HR said she didn't give anyone orientation. Turns out she went to the wrong address, and they had orientation for a dozen new hires, and she somehow got in and tagged along. Well, now you get to go to another first day of work. So I'm a high school teacher. About 10 years ago, I had a student say he couldn't do his homework because his car caught on fire on his ride home, and his textbook was in the back seat. I was suspicious, but he quickly produced the badly charred textbook, which was also completely waterlogged from when the fire department put out the fire, and he asked me if I could issue him a new one. It's possible that he burned and soaked his textbook in an effort to get out of doing his homework. If that was the case, bravo. It's like, oh man, I forgot to do my homework. I'll just light my textbook on fire. That'll probably get me out of it. So an employee missed a few days at work because he had been arrested and jailed. He told me it was a mistake, and he was innocent. Turned out he was right. See, the problem with criminals is that most of them are also liars. So if they think you're a criminal, it really doesn't matter how honest you are at that point. So someone was running late for something due to a traffic accident and a road being closed. So they tried an alternate route, and that was closed for a different incident. So they called, said that they'd try another way. The third route was blocked for something else. They called again, said they gave up and went back home. I checked the news, and they weren't making any of it up. There was no escape from their neighborhood for a while that day. Several main roads were shut down for various reasons. So, I'm trapped in my neighborhood, I can't go to work. So my excuse, the night before I went to sleepaway camp in middle school, I hear a glass shatter in the kitchen at 2 a.m. I go to investigate and find a broken beer bottle on the counter and beer everywhere. I start to clean it up, and parents come to find me. I tell them it exploded, and they don't believe me. They say I'm in trouble after I get back from camp. By the time I get home, nearly all of my dad's home-brewed bottles had exploded. Maybe he didn't make them correctly. So a friend told me he was late for tennis because he was stranded on a huge floaty unicorn on Lake Huron. Turns out him and his girlfriend rode out on the lake and couldn't get back. He had to call the Coast Guard because the unicorn was too big to drag back. For reference, it was 60 pounds not inflated or wet. Well, geez, I'm glad you had the Coast Guard to come save you from that magical journey. So I was once a month late to work because of a volcano going off. It was the Ijafjaladjokul volcano's ash cloud in 2010, and I was stuck in Egypt on a holiday for a whole month. Needless to say, it was great. I like how he words this, I was a whole month late to work. It's like, hey guys, sorry I'm late for today, July 12th. Is work still going on? I showed up to a class with only 45 minutes late. My teacher was going to give me detention. I told him that I had rescued a rooster that was in the hallway, and the guidance counselor and I had taken him to the SPCA. Even I knew it sounded far-fetched. He yelled at me and told me to sit down. My guidance counselor ran in, then exclaimed, "Guess what we just did?" No detention for me. This is one of those occurrences where you're just like, you better be taking pictures because nobody's gonna believe this. So I was the person giving the excuse. One time I saw what appeared to be a massive fireball falling out of the sky from somewhere in the vicinity of a nuclear power plant, which was affiliated with my organization at the time, and as such, I was obligated to make a statement to security about the topic, making me 10 to 15 minutes late for my shift. Security informed me that they had not seen it, despite the fact that I had witnessed it where I believed to be in the sky directly in front of their viewing glass, which they stare out 24/7, and it was the size of something that, well, is pretty friggin' hard to miss. My coworkers said they believed me, but even I honestly didn't believe it myself until I saw it on the news a few days later that a large number of meteors had fallen throughout the country that same night. So, why were you late to work? A meteor fell right in front of me. I got a call once to go cover a shift for a coworker, as she has a horse at her house and she had to wait for it to be picked up. I laughed when I heard it, but she sent me photos and apologized about me having to do her shift, explaining the horse belongs to her mother and she often rides it to her house because the neighbor kids like it and stuff. Turns out the horse got out of the stables and decided to go for a long walk overnight, and she was startled by some rattling at the open window in the living room. She thought somebody had broken in, so she ran with a knife and found the horse's head sticking through her open window in the living room like, "Sup, got food? I've been walking all night and I'm hungry." Her parents came with their horse trailer thing to get it, but it took a while before they could arrive. Man, horses sound like way too much work. A cat's bad enough. I'm gonna be late. There's a naked crackhead on my roof, waiting for police. You can just say you're running late, dude. Picture a message of naked crackhead on his roof. Wow, there is a naked crackhead on your roof. Do what you gotta do, I'll cover. You know, it's just one of those parts of the neighborhood. So a worker told me that she had to miss the mandatory meeting starting in like 30 minutes because the doorknob had fallen off the front door of her parents' house. And she had to stay because of security until the next person got home, or the guy got there to fix it. I was like, what the? Send me a pic. So she did, and there was legit no doorknob. Just a hole in the door. I gave her a pass. Come on, you could probably find some way to lock that door with no handle and just a hole through it. So my mom was actually the one to give the excuse. I just got to hear her end of the phone call. My mom was a nurse who walked nights, so she was leaving the house around 10:30. We said bye, and then she called us, laughing, to come out in the door. In the driveway, between the door and the car, were two skunks doing it. Those horny things were going at it so long she had to call her work and let them know she was going to be late because I'm not pissing off two skunks trying to get off. She ended up having to wait 45 minutes for the skunks to finish up. I mean, wild animals don't really have a bed to go back to, so public is really all they've got. So when my friend and I moved into our first apartment together, we thought it was cursed for a while. We both worked at the same shop, usually on different shifts. About a month after moving in, she left for work, got about 10 steps down the road, and saw a police cordon. The officer at the cordon was confused as to where she had come from since everybody within the area had been told not to leave their building. But this message obviously hadn't gotten to us for whatever reason. She couldn't get past and had to turn around and go back home because apparently a World War II bomb had been uncovered on a nearby construction site. So our boss was told, "Yeah, I might be late for work. There's a bomb." About 2 weeks later, I went to leave for work, and when I opened the door to our flat, I was confronted with a long black bag propped up in the hallway against my neighbor's door. There was nobody around for a second or two, and I was very confused. Then a paramedic appeared, looked at me looking at the bag, and told me to go back inside my flat. Which I did, because what else can you do? I closed my door and just stood in the same spot for about 5 minutes in total silence, processing what was going on. The policewoman knocked on my door and apologized, told me to make myself a cup of tea, I am British, and stay inside for a while. The black bag was in fact a body bag, and my neighbor's body was inside it because he had passed out drunk and choked on his own vomit, which is a real thing that does happen apparently. So then our boss got a call from me saying, "Sorry, I'm gonna be late, there's a corpse in my hallway." At our work Christmas party that year, we got an award for the best true reason for being late he had heard in his 25 years as manager. Man, it sounds like you live in a pretty exciting area. I had someone who had to take 2 weeks off of work because he said he had to go back to Nigeria to be crowned ruler of his province. So I was like, so you're a Nigerian prince, eh? Well, turns out Nigeria has a lot of royal families of different areas, and the dude working for me was a legit Nigerian prince. Well, I'll be damned. Wait, so is he the guy that keeps sending out all those scam emails? We had a big tech leave 4 times in a year because his grandmother died. Same excuse every time. When called on her BS, she pulled up obituaries. And I'll be damned if she didn't have 4 lesbian grandmas. Really sucks to lose that many people in a year, too. 4 lesbian grandmas. I mean, what are the odds of that anyway? Well, that's all. I hope you learn lots of good excuses you can throw around now. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. And I will talk to you guys next time.